I first heard about Norm's store. It was like this famous place that you have to go to, but it was in Tarzana, California. Is that how you say it? Which I always thought was east of LA, you know, like towards halfway to Phoenix. And so I'm going, well, I'll never go out to where, and then you find, oh no, it's right, it's just over on the 405, just over, oh. Then the problem becomes that you're gonna go to Norm's and he's gonna have these incredible guitars, and oh, maybe you'll see Tom Petty, you know, that myth, and which true, but this like Shangri-La, this oasis for guitar players.
I've seen shadows cast over my eyes, not much longer with a shadow.
And it's like making a pilgrimage to a place you should go if you are serious about the guitar. You should all go to Norm's Rare Guitars if you're at all serious about playing the guitar. It's one of those places.
The Creator builds a home inside. Won't be trouble when I rest my head tonight. 'Cause the only loser is the one that begs to hide. I've seen hard times, I've seen days I felt would never end. I've seen shadows cast over my eyes, but not much longer will the shadows haunt my mind.
Throughout the store's history, we've had some of the most iconic guitar players in the world come through.
Welcome to Norm's Guitars.
From George Harrison to Bob Dylan to Tom Petty.
Eddie Van Halen bought his first guitars from Norm when both of them had more hair.
I bought a bunch of guitars from Norm's.
You see, the instruments at Norman's are, well, unique.
This guitar here is probably a $35,000 guitar.
Norm Harris has been collecting and selling vintage guitars, lots of them.
This is Norm. This guy has sold guitars to every single person that's ever walked into Hollywood for the last 25 years. So you're gonna have a million stories.
There's some stories, there's some good ones. There's a couple involving you too, my man.
I just stumbled into Norm's, and it's been a revolving door in my life for 35 years.
A lot of the international acclaim basically came from the Japanese, I would say.
I mean, there are those of us who are just waiting for the right piece to show up.
Pretty much a place of legend.
For a small mom and pop shop, Norman's Rare Guitars is world famous.
The real celebrities, though, are the guitars. Musicians claim the ones made in the 50s just sound better.
The pickups, the design, the woods that they chose, the finish they put on, it's really cool stuff.
The independent store will always be the place that you go for connection.
Because, I mean, half the people that you see here when you walk into Norm's, they're just fucking hanging out. I'm not talking about the people working here. I'm talking about the people that just, half the time they're coming in just to shoot the shit and like maybe think about buying that guitar eventually.
I spent too much money there, but I want to spend more.
There's nothing like this store. Nothing.
Got into town like 3 days ago. I'm like, I gotta go to Norm's.
Everybody knows about Norm's Rare Guitars. It's just like you go to LA, you go there.
This is an experience being in Norm's. Norm's has a warmth to its walls. I'm sure it's got a lot of stories too.
I actually always learn something when I come to Norm's or smaller places because you have people, I mean, some of the greatest guitar players in the world played here. Don McLean, I mean, you know, Colin Hale. I mean, a lot of heavy people come here.
When you go into a music store, it's probably the optimum place you want to go into because it's just filled with instruments and it's sort of orgasmic in that sense. Norman's is probably at the very, very top of the orgasmic 1 to 10.
Are you an average collector?
I'd like to think a little better than average.
I learned about the shop from a shirt. Like, even the shirt was interesting.
Every guitar, every amp, everything that's in this store is understood, taken care of, is the finest you're going to get.
This is as organic a place as I have ever been with respect to someone trying to put the right guitar in the right person's hand to create something great.
I think one of the things that makes Norm special is that the people that have been there before you.
I got thrown out of here last time for taking down a Stratocaster, but I thought I was okay. I'm sorry.
If Joe Bonamassa thinks Norm knows what a good guitar is versus a bad one, or the difference between a great guitar and an excellent guitar, if Joe thinks Norm knows that, that's good enough for me.
The collector in me loves the stuff like you that's really well preserved in it, because they don't make this anymore.
So that gives Norm some real street cred if guys like that are, going to Norm going, what do you think?
He's completely knowledgeable, like has the biggest mind about guitars, and he's got the biggest heart. And he loves music.
And he loves playing, and he likes people. And he's so encouraging to musicians and wanting them to do well. I know that sounds really simple, but it's not. He cares.
And he couldn't be nicer. He's big personality, friendly. He's out there, and he makes you feel welcome.
He is applying for a job over here. He's not working enough as an actor.
And I thought, well, maybe that's just because, I'm famous or I'm an actor or something. And then I saw him do it to somebody else that wasn't. And then somebody else who wasn't. Treats everybody the same. Except he did immediately take me back into the back room and showed me a Martin from the 40s or something. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that? And it's only $50,000. I mean, wow. Is this you or is this you? I mean, and you just realize you're going, I got some per diem from the movie I'm shooting, but it ain't that much.
What's that, Road 5?
You can't do all of this without being a little eccentric, and he is. I personally have always loved eccentric people. But when someone's eccentricities are all absolutely focused into one thing, and that is guitars.
Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, this is 64.
And understanding where the maple wood was taken from this guitar in this era, or, I think Norm was the one who explained to me what a banner guitar was. During World War II, when they had no steel to make truss rods, Gibson, with all the L guitars, would just glue the neck straight onto the body, which is why the necks were always fatter, and that the banner meant that it was made by a woman. How cool is that?
It's not just the actual stories of acquiring instruments, it's who they've been sold to. You're talking everyone from Bob Dylan to George Harrison, Tom Petty, Robbie Robertson. The list goes on and on and on. And I love the fact that a rock star or someone that plays music goes, hey, listen, I need a D'Angelico. They call him first because they know quality, his reputation precedes him. The instruments that he's sold to these A-list type of people have been used to make music that's changed the landscape of rock and roll. Selling guitars to Slash, selling guitars to Tom Petty. And these songs that they come up with on these instruments live forever. And he's absolutely linked to that.
Ready, 1, 2, and.
Hey guys, Norm over here, and I know you guys are like family to us, and sometimes I gotta tell you the good with the bad. I was ill. I was kind of feeling like a little something over by my side here, but my doctor said, go get a CAT scan. And what we found out was that I have a very rare cancer of the appendix. It's called appendiceal carcinoma. So I just want to say, I just want to be truthful. If anybody goes, well, where's Norm and what's going on? I just want you guys to know that I love you all, love all the guys who work for me, love the family, love vintage guitars. So thank you guys, I love you, and I hope that I'm still around to be doing this years from now, but if not, sayonara.
See, Norm and I have had this conversation a lot about, about his legacy, about his transition. He goes, I can't do this forever. And, when he turned 70, I think it really hit him in a way. Problem is, if Norm's not there to run it, then it's a namesake. It's just a brand. And when you take the heart and soul of the brand away, it's not the same. I'm sorry, it just isn't the same. There's only one Norm Harris.
I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but my dad had a company and we would move from town to town because they would set up a manufacturing plant in the different cities. So we lived in Philadelphia, then we moved to Miami, and then eventually my dad sold his company and retired. And that's where we ended up, and that's where I grew up, was in Miami, Florida. Unfortunately, when I was 16 years old, my dad had passed away. It was a very traumatic time for me. When I was a teenager in Miami, of course, this was during the 60s, Beatles had exploded and music was becoming so popular. It was just an amazing time to grow up. I met Marlene in junior high school.
Hi, I'm Marlene Harris, Norman's wife, and we've been married for 51 years. Quite an accomplishment. We met in junior high school, sort of, and I walked around the whole school trying to avoid him.
When we first met, I think Marlene couldn't stand me. I was kind of a punk, and I don't know, maybe that's why she ended up liking me.
But anyway, I ended up being friendly with him.
And we started dating in high school. Actually, our first date, I had a car. I would drive some people home from school.
And one day I needed a ride home from school, and he was looking for a drummer for one of his bands at the Florida State Mental Hospital. And,
For real?
Yeah.
A friend of mine recommended this guy, and it was at this mental institution in South Florida. And I said, I'm gonna take you guys home, but we've got to stop at this place first. And Marlene and I, our first date was probably in a mental institution, which says a lot.
We saw a lot of crazy people, but he never found the guy who was supposed to be a good drummer. After that, we started dating, and we've been together ever since. We got married in 1969. I was 18, he was 20. I woke up the next day saying, what the fuck did I do? But here I am.
People said that I looked like I was in shock at the wedding the whole time because I think it was, well, I'm sure I was probably, I used to smoke a lot of pot, so I was probably a little bit out there. But I looked like I was dazed the entire time, and I probably was. But I didn't know what I was getting into, but it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
With my baby.
2, 3, 4. What a lot of people don't know about Norm is he is a world-class musician and chose a different path in life. He chose to be on the retail side of musicianship versus getting out there and touring and stuff like that. He always downplays his musicianship a lot, but the legacy started there in Miami.
So back in the old days, the first band that I had was a band called The Amazing Aztecs. We were kids and we were pretty pathetic. The band that I played in after the Amazing Aztecs was the Glass Menagerie. After that, I played in a band called the Bangles, which was two Seminole Indian brothers, Steve and Lee Tiger. And we played at a place called The Image. And we were one of the house bands that played there. And every week they would bring in a major act that was either international or national. And we opened for Jimi Hendrix. We opened for Cream, we opened for the Amboy Dukes, which was Ted Nugent's first band, opened for the Chambers Brothers, we opened for the Mothers, and you know, there was one dressing room in the place, so all the bands kind of got together, and I did meet Hendrix, and you know, everybody was pretty high at the time. The band after the Bangles was a band called Kathmandu, and we were doing a lot of original material, and we were recording at Criteria Studios. We got a record deal with Mainstream Records, which was the same record company that Big Brother and the Holding Company were on. Unfortunately, we found out about 3 days after we signed and did our record that they were being sued by Big Brother and the Holding Company for not giving them any of their royalties, so that didn't work out all that well. One of the first instruments that I ever bought that I realized maybe I was on to something is in Kathmandu, there were two guys, a guy named Bobby Caldwell and Bobby Jabbo. They both played guitar and bass, but neither one of them had a bass. So I volunteered to get a bass.
So he happened to find a bass in the newspaper.
I saw an ad for a jazz bass in the Miami Herald, and I went out and bought this older jazz bass. It was like a 1961. It was a very early 3-knob bass. I bought it for $125. When I brought the bass back and the guy started playing it, people around town, including Jaco Pastorius and a number of other people, saw this bass and everybody wanted it. And I went, wow, you know, maybe I could actually make a buck buying and selling some of these used instruments around town. And that was kind of the thing that kind of the light bulb flashed, and I realized this could be something where I could pick up some extra money. Being a musician, I wasn't making a whole lot. Once I realized I could make money off that jazz bass, I saw an ad in the newspaper, and I called and I said, what kind of guitar is it that you have? And she goes, well, it's a Gibson. And I said, how much do you want for it? She says, $25. I said, I'll tell you what, I have $20 on me. I'll give you $20 for it, sight unseen. And I walk into the house and I see this beautiful brown case sitting in the back. I went to myself, well, that couldn't possibly be it because the case was so beautiful. She said, no, that's it over there. And I open up the case and it's this beautiful late 30s L5 blonde cutaway. I know nothing about guitars at this time, but you don't have to be a genius to look at this thing and realize this is a valuable guitar. So I gave her the $20, bought it, got out of there, and I went and showed it to this friend of mine, Ed Olick, who kind of was dealing old guitars, and everybody was kind of, you know, ooh, ah, over this guitar. The next day, I actually took Marlene's car, and I had the L5 in the car, and we're driving back, and all of a sudden I hear a car going, and just smashes into the back of the car, and it cracked this L5 up. Just so happened that I took it to my friend Ed Olick the day before and showed him the guitar. And when I tried to claim it on insurance, they actually contacted Ed Olick to ask him what the guitar was worth. And Ed said, oh, that guitar is worth a fortune. You better give him like $1,200 and get him out of your hair because you'll never be able to replace it. That $1,200 gave me a lot of money to go out and buy guitars, which were very inexpensive at that time. That really got me started. Little Richard and his brother managed our band, Kathmandu. Little Richard was very instrumental in our move because, I mean, he wanted us to go to LA and meet Mo Austin from Warner Brothers Records. It was just kind of really stated to me very intensely, if you really want to make it in the music business, you have to go to California. That's where it's all happening. For whatever reason, as bands do, our band broke up. I went with a band called the Angel City Rhythm Band.
All right, the Angel City Rhythm Band. While the band was sleeping, we were up early in the morning and then buying and wholesaling guitars to the music stores. So we were busy all the time, and we used to go to the musicians union. We saw that they had a musician's handbook. So I said, well, this is great because you can call all the people in the handbook and find things, and he did that. And then I said, let's call people that have horses for sale because cowboys play guitar. I mean, I came up with a lot of ideas, but he ran with it.
When I came to Los Angeles, it was a mecca, and had the opportunity to buy things that I never would see in Miami. And I had also the opportunity to sell a lot of things because all these big bands were out there. I was kind of getting known amongst other bands just by word of mouth. I would kind of buy and sell guitars in LA, and I would buy them privately, and I would sell them through some stores on consignment, and sometimes to these stores. And there was a store that I used to do a lot of business with in West LA called University Music. And there was a friend of mine, Dale Rossman, who used to run the place. One day, he gives me a call about maybe 9:30 in the morning, and he goes,
Norm, I need you to come over here right away. I've got a very important customer who wants a guitar.
I get to his store and I walk in, and it's just my friend Dale sitting there. And I go, Dale, what's the deal? Dale, I just drove all the way over here. You told me it was somebody real important. He said, all right, I'm going to tell you. It's George Harrison. And I just kind of was looking at him like, I was kind of in shock. And all of a sudden, George walks through the door with Mal Evans, who was the Beatles' road manager. He said he had a guitar stolen from him. It was a Les Paul that Eric Clapton gave him, and he needs to replace it. They found the store where the guitar was sold to. The guy who bought it at that store bought it in good faith, and the guy said he'd be willing to give George back his guitar if he could get a similar guitar, a late 50s Les Paul Standard, in exchange. So I told him, well, I happen to have 3 of them. He jumped in my car, and we drove back to Sherman Oaks. I had a 3-bedroom apartment at the time, but I had 2 bedrooms were just filled with guitars everywhere. I opened the door, and Marlene's still in her bathrobe, and I go, Marlene, I'm bringing in George Harrison.
I said, yeah, right. And I stayed in my bathrobe, and I didn't even change.
And then 2 seconds later, George and Mal walked through the door, and Marlene was like looking at me like, why didn't you tell me? And she's in shock. And anyhow, we sat there for a couple hours, played some guitars, and George ended up buying 2 late 50s Les Paul Standard Sunbursts, one to send to replace the guitar and get his guitar back, and another one that he fell in love with, which was a 60 that was very clean, that he wanted for himself. And he also bought a 1956 Stratocaster, which I charged him $750. Nowadays, this would probably be a $50,000 or $60,000 guitar. It was super clean, but I liked him very much, and I was so stoked that I was actually even dealing with George Harrison that I didn't really care. I would have given him the guitar probably just to be able to say that, although I didn't think anybody would believe me. I would run these ads in the LA Times for instruments for sale. And I get a call, and the guy says, I'd like to come see these. And I said, yeah, come on over. And I said, what's your name? And he goes, Robbie. And Robbie comes in, and I didn't recognize him, but it was Robbie Robertson from the band. So he came in and he buys several instruments from me. And then I get a call like the next maybe Wednesday or Thursday, and he said, this Saturday I'd like to bring a friend of mine in if you wouldn't mind. I said, no. He brings in Bob Dylan, and that was the first time that I ever dealt with Bob Dylan. And Bob ended up buying some instruments from me. And then Robbie also brought Joni Mitchell and Robin Ford. And it seemed like, word of mouth around town amongst the musicians, because there were no vintage stores. Nobody had any vintage stuff. And I had a 3-bedroom apartment with guitars everywhere. And so I had kind of monopoly on the vintage market at the time in LA. And Robbie was very instrumental in building my business up. And it was really a plan B. I mean, I really started out coming out to California to be a musician. My intention was to just be able to provide a living for my family.
So if I put this, for instance, right up here?
Yeah, just so that you can read what the thing is on the bottom. Make sure that there's something. So,
I see that.
Yeah. And just all this stuff is just kind of...
You know how they say you grow into your parents? Like, you don't even realize it, but I'm starting to see, like, I can't shut off. Like, I couldn't sleep last night because I was thinking about clients and emails and all this crap, and that's the same shit that I come down on him for.
I mean, if it wasn't for my family, I probably wouldn't go to the doctor, to be honest with you. I'm like, you know,
I know.
I figure I'm here till I'm not, you know, but, you know, I did, and I checked it out, and unfortunately or fortunately, that's the news I got. I mean, nobody's taking regrets. My daughter is, you know, it's tough for her, so.
I think my dad taught me, like, an insane work ethic. I grew up, and he wasn't around that much, and sometimes it does bother me. I tell my dad, like, I want you to retire, you're getting older, you need to just relax and chill, but he's not him without that store. Like, he doesn't have an identity without that store. It's like his life, day and night.
When we had our firstborn, Jordan, I was, you know, and I'm still kind of a reluctant father.
Norman, you know, was more of a big kid than, you know, a hands-on parent. I mean, he was off playing softball or playing in the band at night, and I would have to say I was the responsible parent. He was a good father, but he wasn't there a lot. Jordan was my first, and Sarah wasn't born till 6 years later.
And of course, I was crazy about her, just like I was with Jordan.
I had my hands full with both of them, and, you know, when he was there, we had a good time.
I always felt kind of, you know, out there as a father. I would see these television shows like Father Knows Best and Leave It to Beaver, and these families seemed so normal. And I felt so abnormal that I just couldn't really see myself as being a father. But I did the best that I could, but there were a lot of long-haired musicians hanging around, and, you know, that was just the way it was back then. And I always kind of felt like the Munsters or the Addams Family or something. I always just felt totally off to the left.
Norman worked really hard, and he was always stoned, so it was amazing that he could do what he did and smoke as much as he did.
I never really thought about opening a store in my life, but at the end of 1974, we were paid a visit by the State Board of Equalization.
Somebody had said, I guess, that we were doing business out of the house, so we ended up having to look for a location, and my mom and I went out, found the first store, which was about 500 square feet. It was on Van Owen and Tampa, Norman's Rare Guitars, Van Owen and Tampa.
I didn't know if I was going to have a business or not, you know, so we wanted a really small store with very low rent, and I didn't know if I'd be in business for 5 years or 2 years or 6 months.
I am Scott Borden. I was Norman's original partner. We opened the store, I believe, on Valentine's Day in 1975. And I was there virtually every day for the next 10 years. I didn't even get vacations. He wouldn't let me go. Back in those days, I was one of the few people that had never smoked a joint. I didn't get high, and I didn't drink. And he had already seen that I was pretty good at selling guitars, and he felt like, well, since he smoked a lot, and I didn't smoke any, I would be a good person to be in that store. I mean, he woke up in the morning and it reached over on his nightstand and grabbed a joint. And to this day, I've still never smoked pot. I sold a lot of it, but I never smoked it. We just developed a mutual trust for each other. And when we opened the store, he could leave. He trusted me. To this day, he's one of my favorite people. And I've been out of the store since, say, 1985, which is how long?
The first store on Tampa, it was 6753 Tampa Avenue. And it had this big, funky, put-together wooden sign up in front that was built by Dan, and the logo designed by John Juke Logan.
They were your typical music store I was used to back east, very cramped. And you'll see amps piled on each other just to make room.
Yeah, it was a piece of shit. It was basically a closet.
We just had guitars all over the place.
He had things that nobody else had. When you went there, it was like, oh, this was different. This was special.
So you walked in and it was emerald green carpeting and like baby poo tan walls, but it was packed with a museum piece guitars. I mean, it was like you'd see 50s Tellys and 60s Strats and 50s Les Pauls. I mean, they'd just be there like it was just regular stock. And in the back, there was a pinball machine and there was a couch. And on the wall they didn't have a phone book. They wrote everybody's number on the wall. And there was another part of the wall that they used to tally up what people owed them. And a piece of furniture named Scott, who was always there eating watermelon and watching TV. And I still remember the smell to this day.
When we first started, the rent on the store was $600 a month. We used to say, you know, if we can gross a couple $100 a day, we'd be doing okay. There was no such thing as these $10,000 guitars or even $5,000 guitars back then.
It was just amazing because it was this little store, but people were already kind of talking about us. It just started growing on its own.
The first little store was kind of like a hidden gem type vibe because he wasn't that well known because there was no internet and stuff like that. So it was kind of like the in guys went in there. You'd never know who you're going to see in there.
The biggest names in rock and roll would just come in and hang out for a couple hours.
First time I went to Norman's old store, I'd see these two hairy looking creatures like rummaging through a drawer of pickups, I think it was, and as my eyes got just accustomed to light, I realized it was Tom Petty and Bob Dylan looking for Rickenbacker pickups or something.
I grew up in an environment of hanging in coffee shops, hanging in guitar shops. To me, it was always like a gathering place of kind of like-minded people, you know, that like guitars. I've always liked guitars. I mean, I had vintage guitars in the 60s. I didn't really know they'd be worth $300,000 now. I thought it was $150. It was a pretty good stretch in those days.
Being the guitar nerd that I was, I went to all the shops. I never could afford any back then when I was 19, but as the years rolled along, I'd pick them up from time to time, but that was always a fun shop to go to because Norm always had just loads and loads and loads of great stuff. I have several instruments in my collection that I bought from Norm, and it's been a friend for, gosh, 43 years.
When I'd get back in from working with John Mayo on the road, I'd go and hang. We'd play cards there all day long and listen to music and play music in the store. Just goof off, you know. We got close that way.
It was like coming to somebody's living room and being able to play the best guitars in the world. So why wouldn't you go hang out there?
I was starting to write articles for music periodicals. And I thought, well, you know, it would be great to try and write an article on Norm. I think this is interesting stuff. And so I'll submit it to Guitar Player because I knew the editor at the time. And submitted it, and sure enough, it got in the December 1976 issue with Robbie Robertson. That article, it brought him worldwide recognition. And people started coming in from Japan, from Europe. We really have to credit the Guitar Player article. And it was the first article written about the business of rare guitar investing and collecting.
After that article came out, everybody started talking about vintage guitars.
His business was solid at that point.
It put us on the map and legitimized what Norman's Rare Guitars was. Eventually, we needed some more space, and the store on the corner, which was 1,800 square feet, became available, and we signed on to that store. I figured I'll never be able to fill this store up. You know, within a few months, we had more guitars in there. You could hardly walk in there.
Hi, I'm Doug Feiger of the Knack, and I don't do commercials, but I've been shopping at Norm's Rare Guitars for almost 20 years, and some of my favorite guitars come from here. So do yourself a favor and check it out.
I was 13, 14, 15 years old at the time. My excitement walking from the parking lot up the street, up Tampa, just to the corner was like, it was just awesome.
It was all original, 63.
I was very young when I first started going to Norm's. I probably had to be, 18 or something like that. There was no internet, there was no social media, there was nothing. So it was just word of mouth. If you wanted a great guitar, you would go to Norman's Rare Guitars.
There was tons of just old guitars and dudes. You would see like a group of guys all talking, laughing, shooting the shit, whatever they do. But in the middle of them was always Norm, you know, just kind of like the Godfather, just sitting there almost. I mean, and he wasn't, maybe it wasn't like that, but he was always super cool, like super friendly to us. And for whatever reason, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just 'cause he's compassionate. I don't know.
When I would go into the store, I would have this feeling of, euphoria because you saw all these, not just guitars, but they were amazing guitars. They were like just the cream of the crop and the best of the best. Everybody was super nice, really cool, and they were like, play whatever you want to play, and you could touch them, and you could play them, and you could strum them. It was a magic time for me, and you kind of felt special. You kind of felt like a part of this family.
But this place is kind of like a hotel. They come and they stay for a short time and then they leave and go all over the world.
One of Bruce Springsteen's guitars checked in recently for readjustment.
Kurt Cobain had come in, and this is right at the height. He was very, very low-key and really nice. Norman didn't know him from Adam because they had just broken big. And that was the good thing about having me there because I watched MTV. I knew, I'd go, Norm, that's that guy from this. We got to talk to him. He's a good guy to talk to. I sold him that Epiphone guitar that was on the stand in the back of the Unplugged sessions that has the Nixon for president. The great thing about artists like him and the big name guys is we weren't trying to sell them anything. I mean, we were obviously, but it wasn't a hard press sale. It was like, look, I could show you this super duper expensive guitar. Oh, it's an investment. But no, you know what? I think you'd really dig this. This has got a great vibe. I know what your playing style is. I think this is really cool. I love it. And he played it and he goes, yeah, this is really good. And he goes, I wound up buying it. And then he goes in his whiny voice, he goes, yeah, I went to this one guitar store in Hollywood and I asked if I could play the guitar. And the guy goes, well, that guitar is really expensive. And I left and I just wanted to look back and go, I could buy this whole guitar store if I wanted to. So I came here.
I remember just the amount of playing in that store, and it was so unlike any other guitar store I'd been in, because on any given day, Jackson Browne could be in there, this person could be in there, and so the playing that was going on was pretty extraordinary. And every once in a while, especially with professional musicians, you could tell if someone was working up a new song, because that's what they would immediately start to play on the guitar. And so it was just a fascinating thing to watch. It very quickly just became my favorite store.
There's an instrument that I think will be coming up here that was in Streets of Fire. And we're now negotiating right now on doing a new Steve Spielberg movie called Back to the Future.
The legacy that he's had in TV and film, everything from The Last Waltz to Spinal Tap and Back to the Future. He even told them, you're in 1955. This gear that I'm renting to you wasn't made until 1958. You truly must have a time machine.
A lot of the times when they needed instruments from either a certain time period and they wanted things to be authentic, they called on us. I supplied the instruments to The Last Waltz. That was one of the things I'm the most proud of. I think it's the greatest rock documentary of all time.
Get off of this mountain, you know where I wanna go.
This is a little piece of history. So on that tour with the band and Bob Dylan in 1974, I got from Norm a red Stratocaster, and it felt so good. It felt like the nicest Telecaster, because some of them, the early ones can be a little bulky in the neck or a little thin, whatever. This one felt beautiful. So I used it the whole tour. In 1976, when we decided to do The Last Waltz, concert and movie, this guitar, I thought, well, we're bringing things to a conclusion here. I'm gonna have this guitar bronzed. I'm gonna have it dipped like they do baby shoes and bronze them. So they did, and it changed the sound of it in a good way. It was great. But what I didn't realize, because The Last Waltz concert went on for 5 hours, and it also made it twice as heavy. I had another Stratocaster that I got from Norm, beauty. And so with the bronze one, when it would wear me out, I would switch to the other Strat. And when Eric Clapton plays in The Last Waltz and his strap breaks, I was playing that guitar. And Martin Scorsese had said to me, my God, that's such a beautiful guitar, when they were editing the movie. But he kept saying, God, that's a beautiful looking guitar. And then in the fall of 1977, I gave him the Sunburst one for his birthday. I don't know if I should have done that.
I also supplied Spinal Tap with a whole bunch of guitars that were like Les Pauls and Stratocasters and Fender Bass Sixes.
It's quite unbelievable.
And I supplied them with a Marshall amp. They said, well, one of our gags is we're going to say amps go from 1 to 10, but this amp goes to 11.
11? Look, right across the board. 11, 11,
and most of
11,
the
and then
amps go up to 10.
Exactly.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
And that was kind of one of their gags. And it's part of the vernacular of musical instrument culture where people go, yeah, it goes to 11, and people know what that means. It's a Spinal Tap reference. When I see these things in videos, and I see them in movies, and I see them on TV and all that, and I know that I actually supplied that instrument, I mean, you know, it's like supplying them with a weapon. I feel like I have a history with the artist and with the item. I have a memory a lot of times with the guitar itself, and it's just real satisfying. It's just something that's a good feeling to know that I was a part of it.
The store on Tampa and Van Owen felt like the walls were coming in, and he needed to get a bigger store.
The store that I'm presently in, that we moved in the year 2000, is 6,000 square feet. Same thing. I figured we'd never be able to fill it up, but we've filled it up and more.
These guys put up with a lot, and I want to thank my kids, and I want to thank the person who I love the most in the world and who has put up with me for 25 some odd years, and I hope it goes for a lot longer, my wife Marlene. Thank you very much.
So Marlene, do you have anything special you want to say to Norman this on your 25th anniversary?
I really love him a lot, and I'm really glad that we had everybody come tonight, and I'm having a really good time.
25 years is quite an accomplishment. Congratulations, and hopefully another 25 years to come.
I've known Norm for a long time, and I really cherish the relationship with him.
A good friend and kind of like a brother in a way. But, you know, everybody's got to have a brother like that.
I love this man. I've been coming into the store actually for 28 years. I usually come in Friday afternoons. There's a certain kind of Epiphone guitars that I like. Acoustic flat tops, early 60s, short head stock. So I come in and he had just got one in and he goes, hey, you know, I know you got a lot of these. Here's one, take a look at it. Now, it hadn't been set up yet. It didn't have fresh strings. So I said, all right, Norm, let's do this. Set it up in the morning. You open at 11, set it up. I'll come down at 12. I just got to play it. And as long as it plays right and it sounds the way I want it, then we'll work out a deal. Great. So the next morning, I walk in and there's a guy standing at the counter holding the guitar in his hands, basically just about to take his credit card out and buy the guitar. And so I walk in and I walk up and I go, that's a guitar that you're supposed to be holding for me. And he goes, well, you didn't commit to it, so, but it's still available. I said, you're supposed to be setting up for me, and I'm here to check the guitar out. So I start getting fumed, I start getting angry here. Now, it's not this guy who's trying to buy the guitar's fault. He doesn't even know he's caught in the middle of anything right now. This guy starts negotiating a little bit and going, the price is a little bit high, Norm, because the price guide says this and you're charging this. And then Norm looks at me and goes, Rick, tell him how good my prices are. He goes, tell him that this guitar is worth what I'm asking for it. And I said, you're asking me to help you sell this guitar? And he goes, Rick, you've got 5 of these already. You don't need another one. This guy needs it. And now I just lose it because he's asking me to help him sell my guitar that I was supposed to buy to this other guy. And I looked at him, I went, you're an asshole. And I walked out of the store and I didn't come in for 6 months. I was so upset with him. Then Norm and I had a conversation about it, and I just told him, moving forward, that, we have to kind of change this dynamic. It's not a race to the finish line, and if I want something, I need you to hold it for me, and I need that respect. We've done a lot of business for 28 years, and I'm not going to play that game anymore. And since then, we haven't had that situation. If I ask him to hold it, he will hold it, like he does for his other cherished customers. But for me, he likes to try to, teach me a lesson and piss me off. But I love him regardless.
Just to roll back the tape. No, I just gotta say something. What you said to me is, I'll come in tomorrow and we'll negotiate on it. That's not like, I'll take it. That's like, now we'll start talking about prices tomorrow.
I'll come in if I like it. We'll try to work out a deal. This is my interview. Fuck you. You can say whatever you want. You can do you can address it towards the end.
Make me look like, like I promised you.
You are a scumbag, but I love you
price.
Regardless.
Thank you. Yeah. You made me look like you committed to the price.
No, it was holding a guitar.
Hold it tomorrow, and I'll come in and we'll
holding a guitar
negotiate.
for one of your best customers.
You. That's not a sale.
You know what? It's not a sale. That's how you treat your best customers. If I was Richie Sambora, you wouldn't fuck with that. All right, keep going. Blah, 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 blah. But as much as sometimes he pisses me off and we go at it, you know what? He's like my brother in a lot of ways, so I love him. Hate to admit it, but I love him.
These guitars, every single guitar in here, unless it's brand new, has some type of a story. It's been in the hands of somebody else. It's been in somebody else's house. It's been on stage with somebody else.
It's Tom Petty and Norm hanging out in the store, trying to chisel down those prices.
Norm's one of the few mom and pop stores left.
The very definition of a mom and pop store is what Norm's is. You know that Norm is the one who goes to these places that I wish I could go to, and find these rare guitars and brings them here. So those of us who live and work here can play them and buy them and have them and use them. You walk in here and there's a spell that comes over you. One of the stores got a couch and you just sit here and you talk and how you doing, what's up? And it's a hometown.
Musicians, aspiring musicians, professional musicians, whatever your status is, you love to be in a place where you can just sort of feel at ease and relaxed around instruments and being able to try one out and hear it. And it's just that kind of environment where they welcome you to come and pick up a guitar and try it out.
Going right back to 16 years old, 12 years old, whatever, how we started this thing, and that's the vibe in this guitar store. It's right back to why we play guitar.
And I get inspiration from that place. Just walking into the place and seeing around the room, there's music. Every time you pick up a guitar, it should inspire you to play something or sing something different.
This is one of the stores where you go in and you're just overwhelmed.
At first I was terrified. At first I was like, oh gosh, everyone's so intimidating. I would kind of try to not be seen and not try to talk to too many people.
The first time I heard about Norma's Rare Guitars was actually on set of this TV show I was doing called Roadies, where a friend of mine who's on the show was wearing a Norma's Rare Guitars t-shirt. So I was like, what's that place with that address right next to my house? We made plans to go to Norma's. I think this was the week that Prince died. And I saw this guitar, which is a Parker. It just felt like Prince, and I was like, holy shit, I gotta buy it. And so that was my first trip there. I got this guy.
You walk in as a novice player, you're just like, hey,
wow, these are really cool. And you're afraid to touch anything. You don't know what the rules are. And then all of a sudden you start to have a conversation with anyone who works here, and you realize they seem pretty cool.
Not only does he know everything, but the amazing people that work with him know everything about guitars and are. I used to be embarrassed to play in front of them. They're so good. They play such great, amazing guitar.
Everybody was just so nice. I always felt welcome here. Like I could just kind of hang. There's been a few times where I would come by and say hi because I was in the neighborhood. It's a hang suite, man.
When you get to know Norm and the guys in here, it's a family thing. It's really home.
It's like your favorite local restaurant, where the owner's always there. And that's why it's a good restaurant, because the owner's always there, making sure everyone's doing it the way he wants it done.
You're allowed to be who you are at whatever level you are. It's chill. I've come in here, looked around, and I think maybe once I didn't buy something.
I never leave the store without getting a guitar, which is crazy. It's crazy.
Sometimes you look at the price tags of some of these guitars, you'd be like, holy shit.
There are several different kinds of collecting that people do. There are certain collectors that only want instruments that have no issues, no refinishing, no parts swapped out. They want the most original condition type instruments, and a lot of them don't even play. A lot of collectors are looking at it strictly as a financial investment.
But these vintage instruments, they're like Stradivarius or Picasso, pieces of art, and they just go up in value. It's a win-win. You get to play your guitar on records, write songs with it, hang it on the wall. It's beautiful to look at, and it's a great investment. Norm was right there at the right time.
Buying and selling and knocking around instruments, they do it because they really are crazy about it, and they are crazy.
Basically, Norm is selling me real estate, and that real estate is going skyrocketing. So Norman supplies that passion for those who have it. And the ones that don't have it, he sells back to me.
Being a guitar player and understanding what these scratches and dents mean, to quote Eric Clapton, and how I like to buy my guitars too, is that I like to buy the ones that were highly favored, where, you can tell somebody loved this guitar and for some reason had to give it away.
Right now, I'm on the cusp of too big to unwind. I have 400 guitars, 400 plus guitars, 400 amps. And you're like, there's a point where the saturation point becomes, I'm very aware of that. And how much do you need? Yeah, you get spun up and then you start making sets and you make, it's like, I want to get every color and stuff like that. And yeah, the addict and the collector comes out. When you're in acquisition mode, you're rolling like this. Here's common sense, here's fiscal responsibility. And you close and you just go, I'm in here, I'm this, I want that. And then all of a sudden, it just stops and you go, okay, probably should just sit back and enjoy what you have, because on several occasions, I'll pull out cases and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot I had this. Dumbbell, you've had it for 10 years, You forgot you bought it.
There was a very prolific period for me when I was here and in the other store a lot. I had almost 100 guitars. And then I got really cross with myself because there was no way you could play 100 guitars. And so I sold almost 3/4 of them. Now I have a rule: to buy a new guitar is to sell an old guitar. So it becomes a lot harder to make those decisions.
One of the things about collecting and this whole thing, this whole room that we're in, is the fact that we are purveyors of cool, and you only buy stuff that you think is cool. That's the only litmus test that you gotta have. Do you really like this stuff? Do you think it's cool? Do you want to display it, or in my case, make a theme park out of it? Sure. And that's really where it's the long and short of it.
Nobody knew back then that you could take a $300 guitar and that people would pay $50,000 or $60,000 for it 40 years later. Certain guitars are desirable, and a lot of times it's because of who plays them. There's a lot of things that are old, but doesn't mean they're great.
I actually remember the first time I went into Norm's store. I got in an argument with him because my first vintage guitar was a Stratocaster, 1964 Stratocaster I got in Florida, which I actually borrowed the money because I couldn't afford it, for $200. And so I went into his store one day and he had one, I wanted a backup, he had one similar. And I said, well, how about that one? He said, that's $20,000. And I wanted to slug him. Like, that's immoral. I got mine for $200, what's going on? But Norm had the vision that he saw that the market was going to explode. And I didn't. I was stuck in the dark ages for a long time. I just couldn't bring myself to spend that kind of money on an instrument. And of course, now it's way past that. And I've become a collector by default over the years. I just buy them to play them, and they started to pile up in my house now.
As I look around this room and I see all of these guitars in here, it's kind of overwhelming. But if you zero in on one, right, and you pick up that guitar and you start to play it, it will talk to you. And it tells you, I'm going to teach you how to play different. And it's absolutely true. The way I'll pick up a Strat or a Tele compared to a Les Paul, I'll hold it different. My fingering is still structurally the same, but I'll hold it tighter or looser or, you know, or grab onto it for dear life. They all speak to you differently.
Going to a shop like Norm's, the whole idea was that you would discover something. Are you going to find that magic instrument, that magic guitar that speaks to you? Sometimes I'd have a general idea what I was looking for, or maybe I wasn't looking for anything and kind of finding that perfect surprise. But, you know, go around the wall and just grab the necks. You know, for me, it's a feel thing. You know, I grab the neck, I don't even have to take it off the wall. If I feel it, it feels kind of like, hey, this is in the ball game. You know, then I take it to another level.
I think that even young people, my boys are 20 and 24, so I look to them a lot. How do your friends react? And yeah, a lot of kids buy things online, but I also know customers here that are young people that give a shit about the exchange, that give a shit about picking it up and plugging it in, that give a shit about being amongst this.
One of the things I would say that why the guitars still sell online too, a lot of the reason is you're not gonna find another one.
Buying online is great if you know exactly what you want and you have an idea what it's gonna sound like. But it has to be something generic. If you're shopping for vintage stuff, you have to come and listen to it. You gotta sit with it in your hands. It's a tactile experience. Two perfectly great guitar players can sit down with the same guitar and one of them will love it and one of them will be meh. You know, it's very, very personal, the decision. A professional musician, you're gonna be spending a lot of time. This thing's helping you make your living, so you gotta make the right choice, you know.
People hanging out on the couch and playing together and talking and laughing. And, you know, obviously when that's happening, it helps drive sales, but it also just fosters the community. And I think Norman's just has a community that most other music stores don't have.
The vibe of the store is the reason why guitar stores should exist. It wasn't even about the guitars sometimes. There was always just an element of the family, not just of the people who work there, but of the people who shop there.
We've had a lot of really kind of touching moments in the store as well, and a lot of stuff that, you know, is, you know, a little on the sad side. And, you know, it's just an experience that, you know, you kind of had to be here. But we had a young man who came into the store. His name was Kyle Grady and his mom, June. And they were really sweet folks. And they came in, and Kyle had some type of really rare cancer in his face. And his eye was removed. He had like a patch over his eye. He looked like he was probably a really good-looking kid. He had been through it with these surgeries. Then he came in and he said, you know, I know you're friends with Richie Sambora. He said, you know, I've been going through a lot of these surgeries and, you know, they've been really, you know, hard on me. He said, you know, one of the things that really kept me going was I'm a big fan of Richie Sambora, and I have this little cassette tape of me playing some of Richie's tunes, the Bon Jovi tunes. And he said, would you do me a favor, could you give this to Richie for me? And it was really a moving moment. His mom really wanted, they weren't sure. He said one of his friends had said, you know, you shouldn't go in the store, you know, the way you look, you know, they might start making fun of you. That was the opposite, really, of what happened. It was really, you know, we were really moved for the kid. And I called Richie, who happened to be in town at the time, and I said, you know, Richie, there's this kid in the store, and he's gone through some really bad bouts with cancer, and he's had part of his face removed and this and that, and that. He seems like a really nice kid, and he was really inspired by your guitar playing. He gave me a cassette tape that he wants me to give to you. I just thought maybe I'd put you on the phone with him to just give him a couple words of encouragement. And Richie said, is he in the store right now? And I said, yeah, he's over here now. He said, keep him there, I'll be right over. And he jumped in his car, came over, sorry for being emotional, excuse me. It meant so much to him and his family. You have no idea. And Richie is one of the all-time biggest hearts, one of the greatest guys I've ever known. For him to do that, they stayed in touch, and they would kind of text each other and email each other and talk from time to time, and they were giving Richie an award for the Midnight Mission. And I flew Kyle and his mom out to be with him that day. It was one of the great moments of his life, and his mom was so appreciative. A few months later, Kyle passed away. And it was something, that I know brought happiness to this kid who had been through so much. I'm sorry, I should cut this, Some people are dealt a really tough hand in life, and it was one of the moments that meant the most to me.
I've done so many things like that. Visiting children's hospitals where these kids are dying. It is a very, 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 very hard thing to do. You just bring hope. And you talk to them almost in an existential manner. So it's like, how you doing? It's more like being a friend. You have to have a conversation with them from past, present, and future. Fucking sad. Sorry, I'm gonna choke up. That's what you do.
By the way, even if you don't like guitars, and you've already seen Norm's good looks, so those things happen upon entering the store. But to look around, oh my God, even if you're not a guitar person, it's just so warm and welcoming. But here's also the exciting thing. When I was first brought into the back, oh, delightful.
There's the stuff out there, which is all great stuff, and there's lots of it. But there's a back room, and that's where the gold is.
There's vaults that go back that way. It's like, what are you looking for? And you'd be looking around and go, well, I was looking like anything mid-60s, I'm looking for a Dove. But yeah, I'll come back when you hold on, don't move. He'd be there, and then he'd go behind the door, or someone would go behind the door, and then 5 minutes later, 3 1966, 67 Doves were standing right there, and then he had the hummingbirds in case you wanted to change your mind. I just thought, wow, like how big is whatever room that is behind there, and why aren't we allowed to go in there?
The guitars in the back kind of have to stay how they are. A guitar up front, someone knocks off a switch tip from a Telecaster and it's no big deal, we throw another one on there. But you knock off the switch tip from a 52 Telecaster and now it's not all original anymore. And that's actually kind of a big deal. If Norm doesn't want to bring someone to the back, it's like, what, I'm not good enough or something like that. But really it can just be these guitars aren't supposed to be put in the hands of everybody who wants to see them. I've noticed that Norm is more protective of historically significant guitars. maybe than even guitars that technically would make him more money. That's what he cares about, preserving the history of the instruments that he loves. But also on the flip side, I've seen him take out Tom Petty's guitar and show it to a bunch of people just because someone could walk in and say, my mom and I are huge Tom Petty fans. And he'll just say, you want to see something cool?
There's the stuff you see in the store, and then there's the secret stash.
I had heard about the warehouse forever. Get into Norm's car one day, we drive, and I'm talking to Norm, and I kind of don't know where it is, which is what he wants.
And it was the scene out of that Indiana Jones movie where they find the Holy Grail, and it goes into the secret warehouse where all these crates and there's forklifts. I just remember popping these things open with a crowbar, and it's just floor to ceiling, guitars. You're like, what? He's like, yeah, I have 12 of these. I'm like, what? There's great stuff that people want in the store, but there's also the cut above stuff that you never see again. The once-in-a-lifetime guitars, the mint stuff, the stuff that is so preserved that it looks like it was made yesterday. And it's 70 years old in some cases with the acoustics. It's 60 years old, 70 years old in the case of the solid bodies.
I did pick up a guitar there, and I touched the tuning key, and it basically turned to sand in my hand. So there is, I think it's time for these guitars to be put into people's hands. I mean, it was an amazing, I mean, I was like, Norm, I'm sorry. He goes, oh, it happens all the time. And some of these guitars have barely been played, and some of them don't have a scratch on them. And you realize he spent his entire life actually archiving and collecting the best examples of the best guitars. It's jaw-dropping.
And he has all this stuff. It's a lifetime worth of collecting. It's a lifetime worth of passion. And that's what makes Norm's Rare Guitars special. It's him.
I saw Norm's store on YouTube first. I think one of the first videos I saw was when Richie Sambora was here with Orianthi, and I used to play that video over and over and over and over again. Like, they just looked like they were just having so much fun.
Today at Norm's Rare Guitars, I got my really great buddy over here, Richie Sambora. What's happening, man? And the great Orianthi.
And both of them were just kind of killing it. Every guitar they would give to him.
This chick plays like she means it.
Yeah, I mean, it's 10 million views on that video, you know, and I didn't know he was filming, which was a funny thing. Here's a guitar, try it, and then Richie was grabbing a guitar, and I was grabbing one, and then, you know, you're throwing, like, shiny things and really cool things at me, and I'm, like, completely engrossed with that. It was pretty insane when people were like, you got that many views on that video. But I guess because we didn't know that it was being filmed, you know, so it was really natural and just obnoxious.
When social media got big, people actually had this look into the store, this inside look. It was like all of a sudden a window had been opened and everybody could see the inner workings and the people jamming out on the couch, and you want to know what's going on at Tuesday at 4 o'clock, like, check social media, because they're pretty routine about it.
I noticed Norm's social media taking off before Norm noticed Norm's social media taking off. At first, he was like, he didn't know he needed a minute to get his sea legs, but he's become a really great presenter.
Norm over here at Norm's Rare Guitars.
I mean, after a while, Norm loved the YouTube channel. Like, we do YouTube videos like every day.
Hey everybody, Norm over here, and I once again have my buddy Frank Stallone. They let him out for the week. His nurse said he's okay, You know, I'm not sure about that, you know, but...
Either way, actually.
Well, anyhow, Stan, I would like my 20 bucks at this point. You know,
You weren't there.
How do you remember stuff like that? I mean,
hey, LSD,
it might have been
mind expanding. I remember everything.
He's definitely a celebrity on YouTube. Every time somebody comes in, it's like, oh, I love your show. And it'll be like, what show? And I was like, Norm, the YouTube channel. I was like, that's where they see you at. And he's like, oh, that thing. I mean, we get viewers from everywhere.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Guitar of the Day. I'm your host, Michael Lemo. Guitar of the Day is a show where we pick basically our favorite guitar of the day and we showcase it. First, we start off in the back and we open the case.
It's a 1960 Gibson ES 330.
Once we take it out front, we demo it. We go through every pickup for the world to see.
So let's check it out.
Each one of these guitars kind of makes you play something different. It leads you down a musical path in some way or another.
Norm's social media is dangerous. You know, you watch those videos, Guitar of the Day, you look at the pictures on Instagram, and you end up wanting so many things you see. So, you know, you got to be careful.
The way he helps struggling artists that come through the store, hey, play a song, we'll put it on our YouTube channel.
And you can sit on that couch and you can play and they'll put it out. And so it's such an important place, I think, for a young musician to go and just get a little bit of exposure. He's very, very supportive. I remember when he first played for Norm and started to sing, I saw him go very quiet.
Hello, my sweet Maria.
He nurtures you, really, you know.
I've been in the store over the years and walked in, and there's these people that nobody has ever heard of that just grab a guitar and start noodling around. Like a dog, it's like they're hanging and all of a sudden, whoop, the ear goes up and it's like, what's going on over there? And then you start to talk to the person, and then I've watched those videos that we all see online. I've watched them happen.
It's cool to see hundreds of thousands of people watch you and watch your video. And when you're there, you're playing all these amazing guitars. That's the great thing about Norman's. It's only something you can do there. You can't do it anywhere else.
Norm's platform definitely helped elevate my platforms a lot because especially with the YouTube algorithm and people are searching some unique guitar, right? So they'll punch in the name of that guitar and Norman's rare guitars, that's the first thing that pops up for a lot of people. And then they'll see me and they'll see me play the guitar. And I think even Billy Gibbons, he called the store one day. He's like, who's that girl that plays those resonator guitars? So it's certainly not a bad thing, and it's really cool being exposed to people all around the world through his platform.
That's one of the coolest things about the social media stuff that I dig, is just it really exposing me to the other musicians.
He's finding musicians and bands that he thinks are worth breaking, and then sets them up in here and makes them play. So the customers hear about them, and then obviously it goes out to the social media space, and he's actually making a difference. That translates.
Marcus King, I remember when he came in the store. So we start to do a video, and they start rolling it, and he starts playing, and then he opened his mouth and started singing.
I've been drifting and drifting, baby, just like a ship out on the sea. Said I've been drifting, mama, just like a ship out on the sea.
The voice that came out of this kid was like, it stopped you dead in your tracks, and it was like, oh my God, I am watching the real deal right now. Like, this kid is gonna have a serious career in this industry.
See my baby one morning, she was walking home down the street.
It was a pretty magic moment to watch live in person.
We met for the first time at my last job at Norman's Rare Guitars.
You walked in, I'll never forget it, you were playing in the corner and we're like, he's good, we should do a video. And so we turned on the camera and then you started singing and we were all like, oh my God. And then the video got like 2 million views or something like that.
It was crazy. I'd never been a part of anything.
Yeah. That was the
like
first
that.
viral video I think that was ever on that channel. And then I've been kind of watching the rise of Marcus King ever since, man. I gotta tell you, it seems like it's all happening.
Man, I'll tell you that that video really kind of launched a career, really. Something that I was already on my way to do, but that video helped a lot.
I remember talking to Joe Bonamassa about you, and he said, Marcus King, he said, I'll never forget it, he said, it's not if, it's when. And the when is right now.
When people come in here and they sound really good, I'll tell Norm, or Norm will tell me like, oh, let's get a video with them because they just sound amazing. And so we get to highlight unknown artists, and it's a great way to show new artists to our audience.
A lot of people have come in before they were ever known by anybody. Post Malone, coming into the store, no tattoos, long hair, looking like a kid.
Look at this little chunker. The young men that just came in, Jason Probst and Austin and Douglas, and they had a funny thing happen to them in the parking lot at Topanga Plaza. Not really funny, but it's funny that they ended up at Norm's Rare Guitars.
We drive like a Suburban, and someone broke into the back and stole the back seats without us knowing.
And a guitar.
And his guitar, so we actually had to come here and get a guitar.
And we knew right where to go. They stole my Martin 0015, and so we went looking around and went to Norm's, check it out, and we bought another one. So that was pretty awesome.
But it is funny that they ended up here because you were planning on possibly going someplace else, and then somebody suggested Norm's Rare Guitars. What a guy.
Sir.
All right, so he knows where to get good guitars. Thank you, Austin. So
Play something for him,
Yeah,
Austin.
play a
Play
little
something.
something here. This is an Eric Clapton reissue, you know.
Yeah, that's a pretty guitar. I don't know. I can't really play very well. We just play a little. And then I play the same thing that I always play.
All right, Jason Probst, thank you so much, buddy.
Nice meeting you, Norman.
Austin.
Nice to meet you.
Norman,
Doug,
pleasure.
Thank you.
Norman's rocks.
Here we go. Norm's Rare Guitars.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I fucking forgot about that wholeheartedly, but it's really awesome to see. I'm super different now. Way cuter.
At the end of the day, I think the success of the social media runs tangentially with how authentic he is as a person in his store, and that's why he's successful. If you are as advertised, people want to follow that.
Well, you know, one can only hope that they've done something good for the industry that they're part of. I hope that we are doing and that people appreciate is that we do try to introduce young talent to a lot of people, and also, you know, vintage players that maybe are not well known as they should be. Giving back is very important. And like the city of Los Angeles has been so good to me that I kind of feel like I have to do something to give back to the city, because it's really done things for me in my life that I never would have imagined could have possibly happened.
I don't know if people know how much money he raised, how much he gave back to the community.
He gives to charities, and he's big in the Midnight Mission.
We live in one of the richest cities in the world, yet there's 70,000 people that don't have a roof over their head.
We did a charity event in Malibu for him, and it was a big success, and he's done more of those since.
He's a workaholic, and he has, you know, so much every day. His daily schedule, I would not wish that upon anyone, but he's like the Energizer Bunny, and work is like what fuels him.
Oh man, work's the hardest.
It's because you're the strongest, Norm.
I am, I must be. I'm the most determined.
But on top of it, he's like, I'm gonna see who I can get to play these Midnight Mission shows, because I have this big opportunity to help, and I have all these celebrities coming into the store. What's the worst they can say is no.
The Heartbreakers got involved with the Midnight Mission a few times because we liked Norm and he asked us to do it. We wanted to help.
You know, I always feel like I could have done more, and we will continue to do more. And I think Norm Harris, especially for getting me involved, and Dana for being so enthusiastic. And the Midnight Mission is a good way to spend your money because they're honest people, and the money actually has immediate effect on people that need it very badly.
Through Norm and his many connections and friends and family, he's brought in, I would say, millions to the Midnight Mission. If you took all the people who donate to us because they learned about us through Norm, I mean, that number probably would even go higher.
The Midnight Mission, it's a great cause. We need you guys to step up. It's my favorite cause. And we're going to feed over 250,000 meals to homeless people just from these 2 nights and more. We just got some of our toys, and we just got 60 guitars that we are going to give to the homeless kids.
He's truly humble. It's not false humility. And that may be one of the outstanding qualities about Norm, is that he doesn't even know how magnificent he is. And it's part of his charm. It's like, do you even know? He doesn't know. And I'm like, it's Norm. Like, I adore Norm. And I think that anyone who meets him feels that way. You know, in the years that he's participated in our toy drive and our Christmas event, I've come to see what a gift giving somebody a musical instrument versus a toy. He's giving these children gifts that will last a lifetime and maybe even become something for them to process their emotions, maybe even a future career. Where are we, Norm?
We're down at the Midnight Mission, and we're trying to give some kids a Merry Christmas.
The ripple of Norm Harris has been life-saving and life-changing to the people in Skid Row. His legacy is immense.
One of the things about my friendship over the years with Norm is the fact that I see how much good he does for people. He's the type of person that my family always tried to make me, is he'd rather give than receive.
Hey guys, Norm over here. In my hospital bed with Marlene, and I just wanted to let you guys know that we're making some improvements just little by little. I'm in actually a rehab center right now. They took me out of the hospital, which is a good sign. So we're hoping that I kind of get back to my old self or close to it. And all the love that I've received and so many messages, I love all of you, and I am overwhelmed with it. It gets me teared up when I read a lot of the stuff. But I love you guys. I don't know who deserves as much love as I'm getting, but I'm overwhelmed by it. And thank you guys for everything.
Still buying. This is the first guitar I've ever bought from the store that Norm didn't personally make the deal on. Yeah. And it's like, that's why I always tell people, it's like, if you buy a guitar from Norm's Rare Guitars, Norm gives the final say, you know, on all the deals, which is so good to be here today because, you know, you knocked off like $7 or $8 grand off of this.
Yes, this is a business, and you have to sell guitars in order to buy new guitars, to sell more guitars. But there's a real passion behind it, and it's driven on a real personal level that the music is what matters, and that this is the foundation. You can make it music, but you can't make guitar music without one of these, and we're going to help you find one. And it's got every sense, from the much smaller store in the beginning to now, that it is not a corporation.
This is like the cheer spot. This is the hangout. You don't get that anymore. Like, companies try and create that artificially. Like when you sit at the Starbucks and they want everybody to sit there, and how can we market to the kids to entice them to like hang out here? This is organic.
Every instrument that's come through this door that makes it to the wall for sale has gone through Norm. No one's going to dispute the authenticity of this place, of Norm, of his passion for the instrument, and his passion for the players.
He still loves this. At a time where he could really phone it in, he doesn't. That's why Norman's Rare Guitars is as successful as it is because he did the work. That's what Norman's Rare Guitars is today. It's the work, it's the passion, and it's the love of guitars.
Thomas Edison here invented the light bulb. You have inventors and creators. Norm should be on that list because he basically created the vintage guitar market and store. I believe he should be credited with that.
These guitars are all Norm's, and they will all find homes. And, you know, there's something really cool about saying, like, I got this at Norm's.
Es muy fácil ser exitoso cuando todo viene aquí del corazón. Y yo pienso que Norman's Rare Guitars es eso.
Norm has put the time in. I think Norm will probably, in some sense, always be connected with vintage guitars. You know, it's in his blood.
So excited to see you in the shop. Woo! Yes.
Partially.
Yes, Norm. So happy.
Hey, buddy. Put you right to work.
Put you right to work.
How do we keep that Norman's Rare Guitars trust when Norman is gone?
When he's gone? You mean?
Retired, or it's inevitable he won't be here one day.
You know what? I haven't really given that much thought. I don't know whether that's a very saddening thought for me.
Norman doesn't have an exit strategy. You know, we just take one day at a time. And we hope that if anybody would take over the store, that they keep the same employees. He's built up a reputation of honesty and fairness, trust, and people rely on him. One of the people that I would have to say is as crazy about guitars as Norman is Joe Bonamassa. And he loves everything about guitars, and I would say he's got the same outlook that Norman does, and but he, you know, he's young and he's got his career to think of, but Norman would love to see him in the store also. I think that he's gonna have a long career and he's fabulous, so, but that's who we think of sometimes.
I can't think of this store without Norm. I know Norm since I was a kid, and I wanted to work with him. And I'm doing that right now. I just cannot imagine, my life without Norm, it's unthinkable.
Well, Norm is not replaceable, and he never will be. I'm so glad that there's all this media and all of these films and all the work he's done for charity that is a record permanently of who he is and what he has done, because it'll make it easier for us to talk about him in 50 years. It really will.
Everybody who's working here just has to do their job the best they know how, and it'll work. And people are doing that. People are making an extra effort. I think that's the key. We know what Norm wants, so it's up to us to do it.
We will have to keep Norman's standards if he's not here. We have to use his eyes to buy stuff and his way of working. And his love of really cool stuff, for the rest of the Harris family, if nothing else.
I'm sure that he's got people that will look after the business. I'm sure he's trained people as to how he likes to do things and the specimens that he likes to purchase. And I'm sure he's got a huge warehouse of things that still haven't been seen. So I hope that the business will continue on into the future for young players to discover.
Maybe the storefront will close, but the name, the brand, the memory will live on for as long as everyone who can remember it. Norman's, it sounds so cliche and so funny, but it really is. I mean, Norman's Rare Guitars, it is an institution. As you know, most people who aren't musicians or guitar players going, yeah, please. No, but those of us who have been around here and who have that passion of vintage guitars and have that passion for music, it's going to live on. The storefront might be gone, but it's still going to be here.
I'd be sad as the selfish customer that loves his guitars, but for this to be the turning point for Norm to pivot into his next chapter, I'd be thrilled for him, because then he'd be able to look at this thing that he built as just a overwhelming victory, a stunning success, something that matters to anyone that gives a shit about guitars. Frankly, across the world. That sounds dramatic, but it's true.
All those guitars that are out in the world that come from Norm, you know, they all got a story. They all go back to the source on this. And of course, you know, we're all living in these times and things change and we don't have much control over a lot of these things. But I think that so much, it's been spread out there so much already, what Norm has given to the guitar world and everything. It's been a tremendous gift. And so I think that lives on forever.
And I'm lucky, we're all lucky, to have lived in the time when there was a Norm Harris, and to see it flourish and grow and be what it is. And he's accomplished everything that I think he set out to do when he started off in Miami. I think he's become an icon, a legend, and just on a personal friend, a family member, and the kind of person, regardless of what he did for a living, that you look up to and respect and know that there's still people out there that operate that way.
I feel like this obligation to take over the store, and I can't get there. Like, if it's not for you, you can't make yourself love something and be passionate about something. I mean, I love it because it's my dad's, but that's his love. It's not mine. And I want, you know, my son or daughter, I want them to see the store. I want them to know what their grandfather built. I don't want to just tell them. I want them to actually see it, to understand, because sure, it's just a guitar store, but it's not just a guitar store. To me, it's so much more than that, and to so many people, it's so much more than that. So I hope they get to see that.
In my mind, I'm still the young man that started Norm's Rare Guitars, but when I look in the mirror, I realize time has flown by. And, you know, I'm kind of old school, and I always thought that the thing to do is to just try to provide, you know, as well as I could for my family. But I do have regrets. I kind of wish I would have coached more ball games and spent a little more time with my kids and my wife, but I thought you know, my work was the main thing that I was supposed to do. Now looking back, I can see that I wish I would have done some other things. Can't go back in time, so I regret spending not as much time with my family as I probably should. But I'm fortunate to be able to have turned a hobby into a business. And I love what I do. And, you know, it's a small business, and small businesses have a lot of challenges, and this cancer thing has really kind of brought that to the forefront. And you know, when they first talked about the cancer, I thought this could be it. I thought the family and the business, that could be over. And but my kids got me into social media and the internet and selling guitars on the internet, and I'm very thankful that they did, because it's brought us a worldwide audience. And, you know, the store future is up for grabs. I mean, we still don't know what's going on, but we're doing the best we can. You know, when I'm gone, I hope these guitars go on to make beautiful music with a lot of people, and you know, I hope the business wasn't for nothing. And you know, neither of my kids really are interested in, you know, making the business go on, so I'm gonna have to find somebody that, you know, loves the business and will treat it like I did. My dad gave me some good advice when I was younger, and he said, when you're in business, try to be as truthful as you can, tell people everything you know about your product so you don't wake up in the middle of the night with people yelling at you. And, you know, I think that was a good piece of advice. So, you know, I've met so many great people, you know, doing what I do in the business. And, you know, it's just amazing. And, you know, hopefully we treated everybody from the people who are, you know, busboys in a restaurant to presidents and, you know, congressmen and movie stars and big-time musicians. Hope we treated them all equally and right. I'm humbled by all that's the store has done for us, and I love the store, and I love the worldwide audience that we've gotten since we've been able to do all this internet and social media, and it's all for the music. So I hope that, you know, when time goes by, people will, you know, continue to play these guitars and make good music on them. And I love the family that we've made through the internet, and I hope that it goes on. Love you all.
What does the guitar mean to me? First word that comes to mind is freedom.
It's freedom. It's escapism at its finest.
To me, I always say it's 6 strings in the universe.
Oh, the guitar it's the most familiar thing in my life.
I pretty much live and breathe guitar, and it's my main sort of instrument for communicating. I definitely communicate better on the guitar than I do verbally.
I'll be more comfortable sitting with a guitar in my lap watching TV and not play than I would be without it. There's something very comforting, the way it fits on my body, the way I've gotten used to holding on to it. The fact that it's there, oh my gosh, if you have an idea that falls from the sky. It's been everything from best friend to a life raft, where it's filled the time where otherwise I certainly know myself I can become destructive. And the guitar has saved me more than once.
The guitar is the biggest thing in the world to me next to my family. It's my favorite thing to do. It is my favorite thing to talk about. It is my favorite thing to look at. It's my favorite thing to listen to. It's completely all-encompassing my whole entire life.
It's been an extension of my personality. It's enabled me to travel all over the world. It's enabled me to make a living. It's enabled me to work in a venue where I met my wife of 37 years. And I will never get tired of even looking at the simple shape of a guitar, or the finish, or the colors, or the variations of them, let alone the sound and what you can get out of it.
The guitar means everything to me. It's the nucleus of the art that I make, the music that I make. You know, it was the power within the music.
As Santanis, it was a weapon of peace, you know.
It's a part of me. It's just a part of my DNA. It's me.
It's my world, and there's no one that can touch it.
It's just my life. It's just my everything.